thing that makes jump scares so effective is the element of surprise. There are few things that can make people jump out of their seat like a well-timed scare in a horror game, and that's precisely why we want to talk about them. But some of the most memorable jump scares of all time aren't in horror games. Instead, they're in games that don't seem like they'd be scary at all. So when something does jump out of you out of nowhere, it's kind of the last thing you're expecting. So let's talk about those games. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanx, the 10 worst possible jump scares in video games. Starting off with number 10, it's Batman Arkham Knight. Let's start it out with one of the all-time greats, the Man-Bat scare in Batman Arkham Knight. Insert Danny DeVito saying Man-Spider. All the Arkham games have an element of spookiness to them, and the main antagonist of the game is Scarecrow in this one, so you're expecting some spooky things going on, but most of the time, scares are ramped up to, like you're in a spooky abandoned building and Batman gets a dose of fear gas, so, oh, you understand you're in the scary part now. This jump scare ignores all of that. In the middle of the city, you're doing something you've done 100 times before. You grapple to a ledge. You've been doing it safely for 2.5 games now, so there's no reason to expect anything's about to change. But out of nowhere, some bat monster pops up and screams at Batman as he pulls himself onto the ledge. Extremely effective scare. Gets me when I know it's coming. It's just that sudden and loud. To make matters worse, it's not the only jump scare like that in the game. It gets worse after a while. The hallucination of the Joker in Batman's head starts doing it too.
The look on your face when you saw him. Who'd have thought?
And just to rub salt in the wound, he laughs about it. He's not even real. He's just like laughing at you. And number 9 is Red Dead Redemption 2, a massive epic that plays with a number of genres and themes. It's a western, it's a crime story, a travelogue, a tragedy, all wrapped up into one, and though it rarely plays with horror, when it does, it really catches you off guard. There's plenty of horrific little moments and secrets dotted around the world, but the jump scares are pretty rare. Outside of the random animal attacks that can scare the crap out of you out of nowhere, while wandering the wilderness, there's one particular moment that comes to mind. This random little shack called Vetter's Echo in West Elizabeth. Now the map's huge, so obviously there's a bunch of abandoned little houses all over the place, but none of them are really noteworthy, other than maybe some loot. When you approach this place, it is super easy to assume it's just like every other little shack you've cleared out. Your horse gets a little jumpy as you approach, but you go through the front door and suddenly he attacks immediately. And grizzly bears aren't like horror, but I'll be completely honest, this scared the crap out of me. Maybe it's because I wasn't paying attention at the time, but I nearly fell out of my seat when I saw this. And number 8 is Uncharted 2. Remember the zombies from Uncharted 1? But looking back, not really a honest-to-God jump scare anywhere in there, at least that I remember. Kind of just genuinely scary the whole time, rather than having to really suddenly step on the gas at any point. Uncharted 2, way less scary, but we're going to talk about it anyways. It doesn't really have the horror of the first, but there's a jump scare, and it is one of the best. You know what I'm talking about. When you finally realize, there's some up there in the mountains. It's probably whatever's guarding the lost city of Shambhala, but you only get these little glimpses of them. For a good chunk of chapter 17, it's just Drake and his new buddy Tenzin, who does not speak English.
Okay, we're even.
Catch him, muscle. Not yet.
Doing some mountain climbing with a little resistance. Not much, not a whole lot, nothing really in your way, not too tough. And then you get to this spot where you have to scale up a wall in a cave where the camera zooms out to what looks like a stalagmite silhouette off in the distance, but as you get close, the top of the rock starts moving and a pair of red eyes turns to the camera before jumping away suddenly. It's a creative piece of camera work that's actually pretty damn terrifying at the same time. Not a full-blown screamer. The Eddie makes more of like a low growling sound, but it immediately sets up the danger and puts you on edge for the rest of the level.
The hell was that thing?
And number 7 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Rambler's Reach is supposed to be a safe haven, place for security and rest in a dangerous world, but hidden inside one of the houses is something pretty sinister. It's hard to miss this odd-looking structure with a locked door and a bunch of robot eyeballs. The place is locked up pretty tight, and it's not until near the end of the game you get all the powers and you actually get to see inside. At this part in the game, you know you're going into a place like this. You know there's going to be a few collectibles around, maybe a power-up, then you're done. Nothing too surprising, but this place is something different. The bizarre-looking alien that gets really defensive when you talk to him.
Who? A stranger in these parts. Just looking around.
Well, away with ya! Nothing for you here!
That's a different thing altogether. You did just break into their house, so it's kind of justified, but there's a creepy surprise hiding in its basement. Go down the stairs, you'll find a dead body. If you touch them, you'll get a sense echo of their final moments, which they were murdered by the guy upstairs.
Brother, don't ignore me. You can't stop me. I won't let you! There's still time. Time to go, to walk away.
Unexpected enough in a Star Wars game, but when you turn back around, the alien is blocking your way and he attacks. It's not 100% pure jump scare here because he's kind of far away, but it still really caught me off guard, and it gave me the creeps in a way I didn't expect in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. The main town is meant to be safe, but you're getting attacked out of nowhere in the city limits. It's not like it ruined the place forever or anything for me, because I mean, I think it's the only one like this, but I did not expect it.
Killed his own brother.
And number 6 is the Mortal Kombat series. For whatever reason, the Mortal Kombat series really loves its jump scares, and they're just the worst. By Mortal Kombat 11, you're getting instantly killed by ghosts out of nowhere after putting on Kenshi's blindfold in the crypt. It's getting old. I feel like I should know this crap is coming, but it always gets me anyways. The ones in Mortal Kombat 11 are pretty obvious, but they were somewhat expected even as far back as Mortal Kombat 9, even if it's a much more stripped down crypt, which is basically just a slightly fancier menu for unlockables. If you wandered around this menu enough, eventually you'd start to get these random screamers that would pop up in your face. There was nothing you could do about them. They just happen, and it's a scare the crap out of me for a second, piss me off a lot longer type thing. For whatever reason, having jump scares in the crypt is just a serious tradition. Goes all the way back to Deception. At least in Mortal Kombat 10, the scares were a little more obvious. The game was going for a little bit more of a dungeon crawl atmosphere, so getting jumped by random spiders kind of made sense. With the amount of time you spend in these crypts though, there's gonna be a point where jump scares lose their effectiveness, and I'll say this though, it takes a long time, like too long. And number 5 is God of War Ragnarok, another game with some light horror elements, but rarely does it go for a full-blown jump scare. But if you don't like crocodiles, you're not going to like this one. The side quest Freya's Missing Piece is pretty standard for the most part, gives Kratos some time to learn more about Freya, nothing major happens, and by the end, it seems like the quest is going to end without anything really eventful happening. It's not uncommon in this game, some quests are really just about character building, and there isn't a lot of combat in these, but in this case, they throw a curveball at you at the last possible second. Pulls a similar trick like with Arkham Knight, taking advantage of an action you've done 100 times at this point. In this case, it's getting on and off your boat. Nothing generally happens in these moments. It's purely a mechanical action, except for right here, where you return to Kratos' boat and press circle, you suddenly get jumped by a couple of Drekki who attack you during the transition. Pretty shocking little moment, actually, even if the actual horror of it isn't as strong as the other games, because it is Kratos we're talking about here, not helpless. But yeah, it's a couple of crocodiles come out of nowhere. They're not going to kill him. I mean, he's, again, Kratos, but I'm not. And number 4 is The Witcher 3, the first major quest undertaken in Novigrad is Novigrad Dreaming, where you assist a clairvoyant who's trying to unhaunt a house. Witcher 3 is a game that dips into horror a fair bit more than most open-world RPGs, but there's rarely anything I would describe as pure horror in it. This place a little different though. There's a strange, oppressive atmosphere to the place, and it feels like something spooky could happen at any moment. While helping out, you find a few creepy artifacts left behind, and eventually uncover a trapdoor leading down to a cellar with an old oven. There's definitely something sinister in this house, and when you check the oven, that's when it reveals itself. The split second, just as the creature called a godling reveals itself and says, "Boo," that's part absolutely terrifying. Of course, immediately after that, it becomes obvious that it's harmless. It's just playing around. But that slow build-up to the reveal is absolutely masterful, and it's almost better that it's a joke that scares the crap out of you. It's at very least more clever.
You're lucky. I know you're a harmless godling, but others might not know, and then...
And how'd you know I'm a godling, eh? How's that, eh?
If it looks like one and acts like one, trust me, you're a godling.
And number 3, A Hat in Time. Plenty of platformers have some scary stuff in them, and even some slight horror elements, but no other platformer takes as hard of a turn into horror as A Hat in Time. Most of the game is exactly what it looks like, a kid-friendly Mario 64-inspired adventure that barely ever puts you in real danger, let alone get scary. But this is a game that's meant to surprise people. Before getting to level 3, the game has already taken a stab at multiple genres, and it kind of completely upended the standard collectathon gameplay. But when you get to Act 4 of Subcon Forest, it just feels like you stepped into an entirely different game. I'm talking, of course, about the infamous Queen Vanessa's Manor, where the game just becomes a horror game out of nowhere for a whole chapter. At first, it seems like a standard Super Mario Haunted House type situation, but when you go into the cellar and enter the first door, you're suddenly hit by a horror sting so powerful it literally knocks the main character over, then gets scary and fast. Out of nowhere, Queen Vanessa starts chasing after you, and the only way to survive is to hide. If she catches you, it's game over. What follows is a relatively brief but completely straightforward horror level. There's no subversion or little joke to cap this one off. It's just a surprisingly tense level that comes out of nowhere, and the game never does anything like it again. And number 2 is BioShock Infinite. Unlike BioShock 1 and 2, which are more traditional horror games, BioShock Infinite is more frightening from a sociological standpoint, rather than really trying to be scary. There are some pretty effective moments of horror, though, and this jump scare is probably one of the best. Near the end of the game, you reach an area called the Comstock House, this lunatic asylum filled with brainwashed madmen controlled by these bizarre creatures known as Boys of Silence. Unlike everything else in the game, these guys are completely impervious to damage, so the only way to deal with them is to avoid them. But, I mean, easier said than done. Still, you gotta, because if they spot you, they'll scream, and all the docile lunatics in the asylum then attack you. This area is where the game actually gets pretty creepy, but they save the best moment for near the end. Your ultimate goal in this place is to rescue Elizabeth, who's locked away in the restricted area on the first floor. The only way to reach her is to get to the warden's office on the 3rd floor and pull a lever, releasing the gate. Sounds straightforward, but if you've ever played it, you know it's a bit of a pain. And while you're looking into the monitor at the center of the room, the game throws a hell of a jump scare at you. You turn around and there's just a Boy of Silence standing directly behind you, and it immediately screams to alert all the enemies in the area that your presence it's a thing. It's something they need to respond to. It being right there is what makes it so terrifying, though. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. You just gotta run. And finally, at number 1 is Singularity. From BioShock sequel to BioShock-like, Singularity is like if BioShock and Call of Duty had a really weird-looking baby. Actually a pretty cool game, and the last original property made by Raven Software before moving over to work on Call of Duty all the time. It's one of those games that has a creepy atmosphere, but it's rarely, scary. So it makes one easy-to-miss jump scare stand out that much more. In the research facility, the 2nd level of the game, there's an abandoned lab with a secret elevator you're supposed to take. In this room, there's a bunch of junk strewn around, and most of it's stuff you've seen before and normally can't interact with, including a camera. But at this point in the game, most players probably aren't going to bother interacting with every random thing lying around, because now they know it doesn't do anything. But if you check out this camera, then an actual use prompt pops up. So you use it, the flash goes off in your face, temporarily blinds you while the instant photo starts to appear. Only instead of the picture being just you, there's a monster looming over your shoulder. Turn around and, yep, it's right there. And it attacks you. It's, I mean, it's a great jump scare. It's got a creative premise. They put the extra work in to include a special camera animation. The whole thing plays out like pitch perfect. It's easy to miss, and it's even more surprising when it happens. It's an all-around world-class jump scare. It really just doesn't get much better than this. There's a lot of really good stuff in Singularity, but in terms of jump scares, which are hard to make creatively, this is a good one. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on Gameranx.